everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going over an item that I think many of us are very eager to use. Today, we're going over the Family Travel Organizer from Linds Handmade. Now, this adorable little organizer comes together so quickly, it's very beginner friendly, and it's another one of those fantastic items from Linds that you will use all the time. That's the thing I love about Linds patterns, is that she really thinks about usability. It looks adorable, you want to show it off, you can have so much fun with fabrics and all of your stuff to make it, but at the end of the day, if you're not going to use it, it's going to look nice on the shelf, right? Linds patterns are usable. You're going to want to use this. So let me just open it up for you. You can see it has a front cover, it has a back cover. I'm using a magnetic snap here. You could also use a cam snap. Once we open it up, you can see inside we have two big pockets here that could be used for passport pockets. On the other side, we have 4 card slots and then one bigger slip pocket here. You can put your money in there. You can put your boarding pass in there. You have one little zipper pocket here. And then all the way over here, you have just a little bit of elastic to hold a pen. So it's everything you need when you're traveling. In her photo, she shows passports, boarding pass, credit cards. You can put your cash inside of here, your pen. You're good. This is a nice slim item. So I know when we travel, we put a lot of our stuff in our suitcase because we don't want to carry it all on the plane with us. So I would just put the necessities right here and then put all the rest of my junk in the suitcase and just have this, because this is really all you need when you're traveling. This is great for families traveling. This is also great for people who have to travel a lot for business. I know when you travel for work, you're always going. You don't want to carry a lot of stuff with you. This would be perfect for that. So in this version here, I made everything out of quilt cotton. I made another version where I used vinyl for the exterior. It's very shiny, very fun. And then I used quilt cotton for the lining. I personally like the quilt cotton one the best. In this tutorial, the name of the game is Keep It Out of the Seam. I'm just giving you a heads up. We have a lot of stuff coming together in the seams here, and we want to keep those seams as skinny as possible. So we're going to talk about that a lot in the tutorial today. So thank you so much, Linds, for allowing me to film this tutorial. Linds has her own tutorials for all of her patterns. All of her tutorials are completely free. They are on YouTube. I will have a link for her tutorial for her YouTube channel. Make sure you go over there and subscribe. I will also have a link for the pattern down in the description. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything at all, leave them down in the comments section. I will have timestamps as always for this. This is a quicker tutorial. I think a lot of you guys are gonna really like that. Those timestamps will be in the first comment down below, but they will also be along the bottom edge of your video. So if you just kind of hover over the bottom of the video, you'll see little chapters, and each one of those is a timestamp. You can just click where you wanna go, and it'll take you straight there in the video. All right, let's get started. Okay, so this is a fat quarter friendly project. I love fat quarter friendly projects because that means you don't need a lot of fabric. You're gonna need about a fat quarter for the exterior of your organizer, and then you can just use 2 fat quarters. You could use just one or bigger piece of fabric for the lining. So I like to have the lining be one kind of fabric and then the pockets be another, just because some contrast is fun. You could make this extremely scrappy. You could use a different small cut of fabric for every piece. Very good scrappy project here. Okay, for interfacing here, I do add a little bit of interfacing that's not called for in the pattern, so it's totally optional. First, you're gonna want a yard of woven interfacing, so Pelon SF101 is great for that. I'm also adding in some craft fuse. So I like craft fuse on the card slots, I like it on the slip pocket, I like a little bit more firmness there. So I would suggest maybe a yard of craft fuse if you wanted to add it. Next, you're gonna need some small scraps of Peltex or Decoville Heavy. I have a scrap of fusible fleece here. This is actually just for helping when I install my bag tag. You could also use the woven interfacing. You could use Decoville Light. You could use whatever you want. Just some sort of scrap, kind of beefier fabric to protect your little organizer. And then some Decoville Light. Now I'm actually going to add an extra layer of Decoville Light to the exterior of my bag, and I'll show you that. But the pattern only calls for Decoville Light to be in the little tab on the side of the organizer. So these are all of the pattern pieces, and as you can see, there's really not a lot to this. I would say the prep time takes longer than the bag making time, but the prep time is still pretty small. So let's first start over here with the main body. Now, you're gonna have one piece of your exterior fabric for the main body. On this piece, you're gonna wanna cut smaller pieces of interfacing. Like I said, name of the game here is keep it out of the seam. We wanna keep these seams as skinny as possible. So the seam allowance is gonna be 3/8 of an inch. So what I do is I just use this template, traced it on my interfacing, and then I used a ruler to trace it down 3/8 of an inch on all 4 edges, and then just use the rounded corners of my template to kind of round it out. So on my exterior piece, I have one layer of smaller trimmed down SF101 and then another layer of Decoville Light. Both of those are trimmed down. So right here around the edge, that's just fabric, that's all. For the lining, I have my lining cut and then I have a trimmed down smaller cut of my SF101. Next, we have the passport pocket. This is just a slip pocket that's gonna be divided in two. You're gonna have one piece of your lining fabric, and then on the other side, I have a smaller cut of craft fuse. So once again, just like I did on this piece, I traced it out on my craft fuse. I used my ruler to measure in 3/8 of an inch on all 4 sides, and then I just rounded the corners and cut that. We want just fabric on the seams. Over here, we have the zipper pocket liner. This is just gonna be the lining for the zipper pocket. You really don't see this at all. You're gonna want 2 cuts of your lining fabric for that. I actually added the woven interfacing to only 1 cut of this. So I trimmed it down again, but this time when I trimmed it down, I only trimmed it down from the sides and the rounded bottom. This straight edge right here is not going to be in our seam, so I don't worry about that. So you can see my SF101 is just trimmed down on the sides here and on the bottom. I only added this to 1 cut. So this is the cut that's gonna be attached to the zipper. I don't even know if it's really necessary. These seams will be in the side of the organizer at a later step, so we'll go over that some more. Next is your flap. You do want your flap to be a little bit firmer. So on my exterior cut of fabric, I just have like that quilt cotton fabric, and then on the back I have the Decoville Light, and I did cut the Decoville Light a little bit shorter, 3/8 of an inch shorter on this straight edge, because this edge right here will be in the seam of the pouch. So I wanted to make this a smaller cut, again, to reduce bulk. On the lining cut for the flap, I did the same thing, except I added the SF101, but again, a shorter cut of SF101. So you see the trend here? Only fabric in our seams. And then you're gonna have 2 cuts of your Peltex or Decoville Heavy, just some sort of nice firm interfacing to help give the organizer a little bit more structure. And last, you have your card slot pocket. This is the biggest piece you have. It is a lining cut. On the back, I used craft fuse. You could use the woven interfacing, that'd be fine. Craft fuse is nice and thin and it gives a really nice firm feel to it. So I like craft fuse. Again, it is cut smaller, so none of the craft fuse will be in the seam. Okay, here's all the other stuff we'll be using today. I will be using my cam snaps rivet press today. I have these awesome little magnetic rivet snaps. So you can see on one side, it looks like a rivet, and then when you open it, it's a magnetic snap on the inside. I love these for this project. You could also use cam snaps, the plastic ones, or the metal snaps. So I am using the 14mm magnetic snaps from Cam Snaps, and I have the dies that go with it, and I actually like to use the 18mm die with it because I just find it a little bit easier to use. Next, you're gonna want a 7-inch or longer zipper. I'm just using zipper tape here, and I already have a zipper pull attached. You're gonna need some elastic. I really like this velvet elastic. You can get a scrap pack of this off of Etsy. I'll see if I can find the link for you guys, but you only need 2 inches of this, so a very small amount. Here are all of my marking tools. I have a heat friction marker, I have a chalk marker, I have an air erasing marker, I have a silver pen. Really, this is just a plethora of marking tools depending on what I'm marking on. If I'm marking on paper and things, I might use the heat one. If I'm marking on the fabric and I need it to go away, I'll use the chalk or the air erasing one. If I'm marking on vinyl, then the silver. The other 2 tools that are really helpful today is this turning tool here. I get this from So Sweetness. And then a seam ripper and stiletto combo. You're definitely gonna want a seam ripper today, but if you can get one that has a stiletto on the other side, then why not? Some good fabric scissors. These are my Kais, I love these. The thread I'll be using today is Mara thread. On the top needle, I'll be using a 70 weight Mara. On the bobbin, I'll be using 100 weight. I have my little bag tag here. Some Dritz wash away 1/4 inch tape is really helpful today for the zipper. Beacon 3-in-1 glue is always helpful for everything. And the needles, I would suggest, if you're doing all quilt cotton, Microtex 8012 should be fine. In the very end, those seams can get pretty thick. even if you're using all quilt cotton. So I would also have some 90-14 needles. Now they can be universal or microtex, but 90-14 needles are gonna do a lot better job on thicker seams. So I will build most of it with my 80-12, but then in the end, if I need it, I'll put the 90-14 on. All right, so first let's do some prep work. So first things first, grab your exterior main panel, and if you have a directional print, make sure it's right side up and the top is, top like you want it in the end. Take your pattern piece and lay the pattern piece right side up, and you'll see there's a snap placement dot right here. Just line up all of your edges, and you can poke a hole through that using a pen or something, and then just use some sort of fabric marker, something that will stay for a little bit in there. All right, make sure you use some sort of marking tool that allows you to see your placement for your snap, because we're just prepping it now. So we just have that there. You can also just punch that hole out now if you'd like, if you don't want to wait till later. So that's the prep for the exterior main panel. On the flap, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it on the lining of your flap. So lay your lining right side up, take your panel right side up, and line it all up, and then mark the placement just like that. There we go. And now for the card slots, she actually gives you a series of lines on here to mark. So you're gonna have fold lines, and then you're gonna have lines that are the top of the pocket. You don't wanna mark these lines all the way across your fabric. So she does give you the measurements, so you can use a ruler and just kind of go down the sides, or you can just line up your pattern piece and mark them just like that. So for example, right up here towards the top, I'll have a fold line, and below it, then I'll have a top of pocket line. And then I'll have another fold line and top of pocket line, and then a final fold line. And then just repeat this on the other side. Okay, so now grab your zipper pocket liner, and if you'd like, you can cut out this dashed line so you can mark placement for your zipper, or you can just measure down and center it. That's what I did. Grab both of your zipper pocket liner panels, and I marked the placement for the zipper on my panel that has the woven interfacing. Remember, my other one doesn't have it. You could have woven interfacing on both of them. You could leave it off of both of them, but I just marked it on the one that does have the woven interfacing. Now grab your main body lining panel and lay it right side up. Take your zipper pocket that has the mark on it and lay it right side down, and line it up on the left side, just like that. Now I'm just gonna grab some clips and clip this in place, just on the sides here. You could also use pins if that's easier for you. You can just pin these two pieces of fabric together. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew along this inner rectangle. So it's the same rectangle as the one on the pattern piece. We're just going to sew right along all four edges. Okay, once you have that marked, you can go ahead and draw a midpoint line going straight down the center of this. And then you can draw some triangles reaching out from the corners towards that midpoint line, just like that. You can use a ruler here, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Now grab your seam ripper and rip right along the center of that midpoint line, just to make a nice big hole. And then you can grab your scissors and clip along that line all the way till you get to the tip of that triangle, and then clip down the edge of that triangle to those corners, and you're trying to get as close as you can to the stitches without cutting your thread. You know it's hard. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, once you have that slit made, take your pocket liner panel and just push it through that hole, so that when you pull it through, the wrong side of the pocket goes to the wrong side of the lining piece. And then just pull all of it out. And I like to just work on one seam at a time. So I'm going to just roll my seam along one of the long edges to get it as straight as possible. Because if it's folded too much, you're going to have kind of a wonky little rectangle there. So do your best to get it all nice and straight. All right, once you have one side rolled and straight, just take your iron and press along that edge. All right, now I moved it around, and I'm going to do the top long edge now. So again, I'm just pushing it back, trying to keep everything nice and straight. Don't want any wonky rectangles here. There we go. And then just give it a good press along the whole opening. Everything should be pretty lined up now. Now let's just flip this over so we see the right side. Make sure that rectangle on the front looks good. You can give it a quick press from the front, because why not? So now grab your zipper and your double-sided tape. And this is how I like to do these zippers. You can do it however you'd like. But I take my double-sided tape and I lay it right along the very, very outer edge of my zipper tape. Now I'm using a number 5 zipper today. I do recommend that since this opening over here is 1/2 inch wide. But you could definitely use a number 3 here. I think it looks really good with a number 5 zipper tape. And the difference between a number 5 and a number 3 zipper tape is how wide these coils are here. So a number 5 zipper tape means these coils, the thickness of these coils is 5 millimeters. A number 3 means that they're 3 millimeters. So they're just skinnier. Since this opening is bigger, a nice chunky coil looks good in there. So I have both long edges taped. I'm going to rotate my zipper so that when the zipper is closed, it goes towards the left. And then I'm going to take my unit, and I have the pocket on the bottom side here, and I'm going to just lay it over my zipper tape just like that. See, so now get it all nice and centered. And then what I do is I fold it back. I remove the paper from one of the tapes. So for me, it's just that top edge. And then I'll lay this back over it, centering that zipper, and just push down along that top edge. And see, the nice thing is this tape isn't crazy sticky, so if you gotta move it around, you can move it around. But then do your best to get your zipper as straight as possible. I pull my zipper pull all the way over. There we go. So now I'm just gonna flip up the bottom, remove the paper from this tape, and then flip down the bottom. And then there we go. You can just push it down, and your zipper, for the most part, it should be straight. My zippers aren't always straight. That's okay. Okay, so now let's take this to the sewing machine and let's just sew along the box on the lining side at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. This should be holding the zipper in place. All right, once you have it stitched in place, you can just pull your zipper back and you can trim down your zipper tape so that's about 1/4 inch overhang. We don't want this zipper tape in the seam in the end. All right, now take your unit that has the zipper installed and lay it wrong side up so your lining is up. Take your remaining liner zipper pocket and lay it right side down, matching it up with the other liner. Now you can just grab your clips and clip this in place. If you feel more comfortable, you can definitely take this to the machine and do a basting stitch at an 1/8 inch seam allowance, but I'm just going to clip it for now. All right, so now we have this unit ready. Let's just set this to the side. Okay, let's make our card slot pockets. So make sure you know where your top is. If you did your markings and you're like, oh no, where'd my top go? There are 2 markings that are closest to the top. So the bottom only has 1 marking down here. There's 2 markings closest to the top. So on that first marking, let's just pinch right on the edges where we marked. And then I flip it over, line up the sides, and then just fold along this edge. The nice thing about craft fuse is that it's like paper. So if you fold this down, I mean, it's folded. You're good now. Okay, so now skip that next mark and let's go down to the 3rd mark. And then on this 3rd mark here, pinch it just like you did on the first one. So we're pinching it so that the wrong sides come together. And then line up the edges. Try to keep it nice and straight. Maybe you marked kind of a little bit wonky on the sides. You don't want this to be crooked. You want it to be nice and straight. So then get it nice and straight and just push it down like that. And then finally on this bottom lone mark down here, let's fold that wrong sides together and then just push down like that. There we go. So if I unfold it, you can see I have 3 little peaks here. So on this middle peak, I'm going to hold that fold and I'm gonna raise it up to this mark right here that's below my first peak. You see? Just like that. So I'm bringing it up to meet that mark. There we go. Give it a good press. And then I'm gonna take my last peak and right beneath this second fold right here, I have little marks and I'm just gonna take this last piece up to meet those marks. All right, give it a good press. And then I'm gonna fold that top one down and then there's our card slot pocket. It should, for the most part, meet up on the bottom when it's all folded together. If it's a little off, you can kind of finagle it to get it the way you want. But there we go. So now once I have it all folded, I'm gonna grab my iron and I'm just gonna give it a quick press. The cool thing about craft fuse is that when it's hot, it's very gooey. But when it dries like paper, very firm. So if you get it nice and hot, it's going to get really, really soft. And then if you put like a ruler on top of it, something nice and flat with a little bit of weight, it's going to cool off and get really flat, which is nice. And remember, we don't have any of that craft fuse in the seams right here. We're gonna have a lot of bulky seams, guys. You don't want any of that interfacing in the seams. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine, and along each of my 3 edges, so I have 3 folds, I'm gonna top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have those folded, refold it all, and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make 2 lines that are centered on the panel and 1/2 of an inch apart. So mark the midpoint on the bottom edge of your card slot pocket, and then draw 1 line that's 1/4 of an inch to the right of it, and another line that's 1/4 of an inch to the left. And you only have to go up to this middle fold. You don't have to go all the way up here. Make sure you're using a fabric marking tool. So like I have an air erasing marker. I've used this a lot. I know that this will erase on its own over time. Chalk marker is also a great option. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to start at the bottom and top stitch along this line until we get to the top stitching on this middle pocket right here. And then we're just going to follow that top stitching across to the other line and then go all the way down. And that's going to create our card slot pockets. Okay, after that step is when I like to trim down the edge. Now she's going to tell you exactly how tall this card slot pocket should be. So I like to just lay it on top of my cutting mat, which has grid lines on it, and I line it up along 1 line, and then I count over. And then I take my ruler and line it up on the right mark and trim. That's how I trim this down, but if you need to trim it down, just make sure it's the same size that it says in the pattern. Now grab your lining unit that has the zipper and lay it right side up with the zipper on the left. You should have your clips here, all holding everything together. Now take your card slot pocket, and we're just going to line it up all the way on the left side. So it should just snug in there real nice. Go ahead and add it to your clips. Everything should be the right size. But you see, we're gonna have some bulk here because we have these card slot pockets in the seam. I know, that can be a little intimidating. That's why we kept these seams without any interfacing in them. Okay, now we're gonna go baste this all in place at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm gonna start all the way up here where the top of my zipper pocket liners are, go all the way around and down, and then all the way back to the other top here, so past my zipper, to make sure everything is nice and locked down. All right, isn't that pretty? These colors, man. I don't remember what fabric this is, but I want some more of it because this is beautiful. So you can go ahead and set this to the side. Now let's create our passport pocket. So this is just a nice little slip pocket. It is a square, so if you have a directional print, think about which direction you want it to go in and fold it in half, wrong sides together. If you're using craft fuse here, you don't even have to iron this. You can just press it nice and firm with your fingers. Otherwise, run the iron over this to get this nice and crisp. So now let's go top stitch along this folded edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you like, you can also add another row of top stitching at about 1/4 of an inch below that. Totally up to you. Now grab your lining and lay it right side up, and grab your slip pocket, and we're going to attach this to the other edge of our lining, just like this. Nice and clean. Isn't that pretty? Let's clip this in place. Okay, now if you just wanted to leave this as one large slip pocket, you could definitely do that. If you had a small enough thin notebook, you could use this as a notebook cover. I know some of you were asking about that, but you would want to not add any stitching here. Since I'm going to be making this a passport pocket, we do want to add midpoint stitching with 1/2 of an inch separation, exactly like we did over here with our card slots, except this time we're going to go all the way up. All right, so you can see I have my lines marked going along the middle. They're 1/2 of an inch apart. And just like we did on the other one, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to top stitch up one side, go right along the very top stitching on the top of our pocket, and then go back down the other side. Alrighty, it's all coming together. Isn't it pretty? I just love how cute this is. Okay, so now let's baste down the sides and the bottom of this slip pocket. So now grab your little 2-inch piece of elastic and just fold it together. I have velvet elastic, so I have the velvet facing out, and I have the back of it folded together. And then just add it centered between these 2 marks. If you don't have the marks, just make sure it's centered on the slip pocket side. So this is the side we're adding it. We don't want to add any more bulk over here. We're done over here. So let's add this over here. I'm just gonna clip it, and then we can just quickly baste this in place at the sewing machine. Okay, you can set this to the side while we make our flap closure. So take your lining and exterior flap pieces and lay them right sides together, lining up the straight edges and the curved edges so that it's all nice and even. You can use some clips to hold this together. And now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew along these sides and the curved bottom edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Leave the flat edge open. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this seam allowance in half all the way around. I hope this looks okay because it's kind of wonky looking. Once you have that done, go ahead and flip it so that it's right side out. Be really gentle, make sure you don't rip anything. If you're using vinyl for any of the pieces here, I would suggest you go around the stitching a second time because vinyl is so thick it likes to kind of pull at those stitches and you don't want them to be seen in the end. If it helps, grab your turning tool and use that to really poke out the inside. I know for me, sometimes my hands kind of hurt pushing out all these things, so this turning tool is great. It will push it out without ripping any holes in it. Okay, once you have it all turned out, do your best to push out those seams as best you can to get everything nice and straight. This step can help provide some straightening out of the wonkiness because I had some wavy stitches, so I'm just gonna press this and get it as straight as possible, and hopefully that will hide my curvy worvies. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch along the pressed edges at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, once that's done, let's go ahead and punch the hole and install the snap for this. So you can see on the lining side I have this little dot mark. That was the placement for my snap. So I'm just going to use my rivet press here with the hole punch die to quickly just punch out that hole. So now I'm going to grab the female end of my magnetic snap. Again, you could be using a plastic snap here or a metal snap. And that's going to go with the female side on the lining side. Flip it over and take one of your caps and just attach the cap to the exterior side. So this is how it should look. I'm going to put this to the side and then I'll press this when I press the other one. Now I'm going to grab my exterior panel and I'm going to find my mark that I have there. And I'm going to punch a hole where I have that mark for the other snap. And this time I'm going to take the male snap and I'm going to install it so that it's on the exterior side here. And then the cap is just going to go behind on the back where the interfacing is, just like that. So you can see in the end, this will attach like this. And this gives you a good idea of what it's going to look like. Isn't that fun? I love these. Okay, so now let's set these in place. So I'm going to remove my hole punch die and I'm grabbing the 18mm die set. I also have the 14mm die set, but the 18mm magnetic snap dies will work for both of them. So if you just want to get one, you can get the 18mm ones. So now I'm going to take my female snap, and I have the female die for this. I'm just going to lay it down and press it in place. Alrighty, there we go. Now our snaps are all ready to go. Now we just got to finish it up nice and quick. Okay, so take your lining panel and lay it right side up. And then grab your flap tab and lay your little flap so that the exterior is right side up and it's centered over your elastic here. So if you want to mark a midpoint, go ahead and do that. You just want to make sure this is centered. Actually, I am going to mark a midpoint. I am not always good at keeping these things straight. So once you have this pinned in place, make sure it's nice and straight and centered. Let's go ahead and baste this down at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, now you want to make sure this zipper is open. I'm not going to have it all the way open because I have a very big zipper pull here and I have sewn over these before. So I'm going to have it halfway, kind of mostly open, just like that. Take your lining, lay it right side up, grab your exterior, lay it right side down, and the snap should be on the left. So if we flip this up, the flap is over here on the right, the snap is on the left. Don't get it wrong. I got it wrong on another project and I ended up having to throw it away. Don't do that. So now just line up all the edges and clip them together. All right, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew around all 4 edges at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Since we have such a difference in thickness, so it's very thick here where the interfacing is and then it's very thin here where the fabric is, you might find it easiest to use a zipper foot so you can get really close without, you know, your presser foot kind of pushing the material away. But go over this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you're using vinyl or anything really thick, you might want to do a second row of stitches just so those stitches don't show when you turn it right side out. Okay, if you'd like, you can make little notches around the curves. Just make sure you don't get too close to your stitching. So if you trim this down pretty thin, you probably don't even need the notches, but if your seam allowance is still a little bit bigger, just make some notches around the curves so that they can spread out when we turn this out. Okay, now we're gonna turn the whole unit out through that zipper pocket. So I'm just gonna open it up all the way now and just gently push everything through it. Once you have it mostly turned out, I like to grab my turning tool and just poke out those corners, run it along the seams to get everything nice and flat. Oh yeah, this is looking good. Okay, so once it's all turned out, I'm just gonna give it a quick press. If you are using vinyl for your exterior, you can just press this from the lining side. But everything likes to get really wrinkly when we move it, so I'm just gonna press it from the lining. Since I'm using quilt cotton on my exterior, I can flip it over and just press the exterior as well. Okay, so now we're gonna add the heavier interfacing. So Peltex, Decouvrable Heavy, whatever you wanna use. I'm gonna take the interfacing and I'm going to fold it so that the glue side will end up along the exterior panel. So I'm folding it, I'm gonna insert it into this pocket. I'm gonna insert it into the side over here where my flap is, and then I'm gonna use my hand to flatten it out. Make sure the curved edge is along the curved edge over here. And this is what's gonna make your organizer nice and firm so it doesn't get all, you know, loosey-goosey on you. So make sure it's tucked all the way in on one side. And then grab your other firm interfacing, insert it in. So you might have to lift up that lining a little bit so you can get it behind there. And then just straighten it out once it's in there. All right, once you have your heavy interfacing all tucked in, reach inside and make sure the top edges of your lining are nice and straight and that they're facing away from the card slot pockets, just like that. I'm gonna put my zipper in the middle. And now I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch along all 4 edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This can be slightly bulky. If you need to, switch out to a thicker needle like a 90-14, and you might want to increase the tension on your sewing machine to make it a little bit easier. If you're using quilt cotton on your exterior, you can run your iron over this real quick and it'll help fuse that firmer interfacing to the exterior. Now, if you're using vinyl, don't do this. All right, now let's go top stitch this in place. Alrighty, how cool is this looking? I just have to try it out real quick. Oh yeah, that looks so good, doesn't it? Oh, I love this. Okay, before we finish it up, I'm gonna add my bag tag to the back bottom. You got it wherever you want. But this is the last opportunity you have to get your hand through the lining all the way to the back of your exterior. Okay, so since we have that Decouvrable Heavy on the exterior, we don't really need to add any extra interfacing between the exterior fabric and the bag tag. So you can, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to close my unit like this so I can get a good idea of where the center is. I just completely eyeball this. You do it however you like. But I'm going to mark my lines for my tag somewhat centered on the back here. That looks kind of centered. All right, so I made my marks for my prongs for my bag tag. So now I'm going to reach my hand into the lining behind all the fabric, okay? And then I'm going to grab my seam ripper and very gently, because I don't want to accidentally poke my fingers, I'm going to seam rip the exterior and the Decouvrable Heavy. I'm not seam ripping through the lining. So my hand is in there just to make sure I don't get too wild here. Here we go. But I'm also not jabbing my fingers. Please don't jab your fingers. So once you have the holes marked, you can grab your bag tag and then just insert the prongs just like that. And then take your washer, and I kind of have to do this blind, but feel around in there, add your washer, pull apart your prongs. And then I have a little scrap piece of fusible fleece here. I'm going to cover the back of it with my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. This part can be a little bit messy. It is optional. And then I'm going to insert this into my bag on the back where my little prongs are. And I'm just going to cover those prongs with the glue side down. I know, I wish I could show you this part, guys, but it's very hard to. I don't know if I can get you guys to see in there. Yeah, so you see there's my fusible fleece. It's just glued over the back of the prongs. And that's just to protect the lining fabric. So I don't want those metal prongs rubbing against this quilt cotton all the time. All right, there you go. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make a straight line stitch right down the center of this. You can measure this out to do that if you'd like, or you can just fold the whole unit in half, and then you can mark the top crease, mark the bottom crease, and then I just used a chalk marker to mark that midpoint line, and now we're just gonna top stitch over this line, and that's the last step of the bag. All right, so what do you think? It comes together so quickly, doesn't it? And I promise you, once you have it down, you can just kind of line these up and make a whole bunch of these. I think these would be really fun too if you added some embroidery designs to the back. Oh, if you put like the family name. Oh, if you had like the family name and then like a trip date. Oh, that would be so magical. What a beautiful gift. What a great gift to celebrate the end of a really, really tough period of time. You know what I mean? Like this would be just so beautiful. Like OklaRoots family vacation 2021, Disney World. Oh, that would be fun. You could do a lot of fun things with this. I'm really excited about that. So as you can see, when we open this cutie pie up, I am just loving this lining fabric. I don't remember. I will try to find it for you guys and link it down below. But this watercolor pastels, this is just everything to me right now. So this is the lining. Guys, such a winning pattern. Love this one. So make it with quilt cotton, make it with cork, make it with vinyl. Make it crazy. I do like the addition of the Decoville Light and the Decoville Heavy for this one. I feel like it gives it a little bit more beef, but honestly, I haven't tried it without the Decoville Light, so I'm not sure. But give it a try. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you adapt this in any way. I'd really love to see some of you guys adapt this for notebooks. I think that would be perfect, especially for a college student. If you made it nice and big, they could keep a lot of different things in the pocket. That would be really cool. This is a fun one. You guys are gonna like this one. So as always, thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Get out there and make something. Bye guys.